Hey everyone, today we get to sit down with Gary Miller and Andrew Robinson. Gary's a director and Andrew's a cinematographer. They just finished their first feature film called Brooker, and it's out on August 16th. They went through a bunch of challenges having to make their first feature film and on a shoestring budget. We also get to talk about what it means to ask for help on set, and also how to work with non-actors. Hope you guys enjoy this one.
It's been unreachable for decades. You can never touch this thing with your skin.
It needs to be destroyed before the devil finds it. Brooker, where did you get this?
You are having trouble processing what you saw.
I'm in something bad.
What you have found is really very nice. I'll take it off your hands.
Do you really think that's gonna work here?
It should be annihilated.
This is how I negotiate.
People are getting hurt. You need to wake up.
We are here to complete the work that has been unfolding since the beginning of time. We will complete that work and bring about the fulfillment of the universe.
Stop!
Who's coming back for you?
You're
Damn straight.
This is Gary Miller and Andrew Robinson. We've got a commercial and narrative director here, along with a commercial narrative DP.
Yes, sir.
What got you guys started?
Started in the film business. Wanted to do it since a little boy, since I was a young person. I grew up with MTV, music television for those younger folks, and where it was just music videos. And I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to make, put visuals to music. And always loved movies, just constantly watch movies, and would love sometimes to watch MTV, turn the sound down, and then play music, see where they sync up, and just have fun with that. My mom would be cleaning the house, and she'd have her music on, so I'd be hearing Sade, but watching Metallica, and seeing how those things could kind of sync. That just, not necessarily by design, it just sort of happened. So I thought I ended up doing it a little more.
Right.
And just was fascinated by how sounds and visuals could sync up, even though it wasn't the correct sound.
Right.
But yeah, I always loved, Radiohead and Bjork and the older music videos, and it's just a fun medium that you could do that was like a short little tone poem, like a little film, and where it seemed like there's nobody telling you no, you can just do whatever you want.
Right.
And of course, movies. I never thought I would be able to make a movie when I was younger, just because it just seemed so out there, so expensive and hard to get into. But now, thanks to technology and resources being a lot easier, there's no excuses.
Yeah. And so you just started rolling with that through. It sounds like audio was a pretty significant, portion of what jump started that, because you could take one thing and pair it with another. That's the spark.
Yeah.
And then from there, did you start doing music videos, or what did you?
No, I actually raced downhill mountain bikes. I wanted to get into film, but then I gave up and got into mountain biking. But then I also found some folks who were making mountain bike videos, and so started getting into that, and mostly just being in front of the camera doing silly tricks. And then some friends of mine went to Full Sail Film School, and we were all roommates. So there's me and 3 or 4 other people that went to film school. And they had, the Canon XL1s and GL1s. These are old cameras, old 24p cameras. They looked neat, and they were fun to hold. And so they had a few of those. We had digital drums. We had, Final Cut. We had all this stuff in the house. And so I was just asking questions and playing. Yeah. They all went to film school and paid for it, and I got to just soak up some knowledge for free for the most part. And then started doing some very small commercials, little $500 commercials, And it just started building from there, just doing more and more.
Nice.
Not to knock film school. Film school is very important for people too. I wish I could have gone to several film schools, and they all look really great. But some of it is just trial by fire. Getting in there and doing it, experience is huge. It's kind of like learning a language. You know, you can be taught a language, but until you go there and actually speak the language and learn it by just trying to do it,
Right.
you know, that's how you progress. So
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, man, cool. Andrew, how'd you get started?
So I didn't get into it till later, but I had in my childhood I had made movies with my friends and we had messed around with video cameras. But I had gotten into yo-yos. Yo-yos were like something that was like my whole life. And you know, growing up in a small town, there was not a lot of people that were kind of into the same hobby as me. So in order to communicate this, I would have to film myself and upload the videos. And so that's when I first started getting into cameras and learning how to use them. I actually had to receive feedback from people online. There was a couple people I thought they were mean, but they were saying oh, your framing is terrible. You got to learn how to composition. And I'm like, what is that? You know, look at the trick, you know? So, but I actually got into music production far later, and I would make beats for local artists, and I'd be in the studio, and they're like, "Man, we got to do a video for this. This is awesome." And I got a camera, like let's do it. Let's make a music video. And so I started, directing my own music videos, and then the snowball just kept rolling. I was like, man, I'd always loved movies and this kind of stuff, and I was always trying to make the music videos be like little mini short films. So like all the music videos would just be their own little mini short film instead of, the experimental crazy stuff. I was like trying to tell a story. And that was like every video is like, what's the next story? How do we push this, further and further? And then, obviously just got into narrative, from that direction. And kind of never really looked back.
Yeah. A lot of your production has involved a lot of travel to a lot of different countries, and like that's par for the course for any production and whatnot. But there's such like a run and gun mentality that I've seen that you've had to adapt to. And
a lot of the foundation came from traveling and kind of being not quite one man band, but slightly larger than that. But just trying to make a movie with minimal resources and making it as beautiful as possible while also balancing technology, which has gotten a lot better recently. But that's kind of that's how I got started.
Yeah. And what was it, like top 50 in the world for yo-yo?
63.
Top 60. Okay. Yeah. 63rd in
the dude's amazing. We were on the movie and he pulled it out. And I just, he talked about doing it. Talked about, doing yo-yos. Doing yo-yo, performing yo-yo.
Yeah.
And he did. I was like, what? I just like blew my mind. I wanted to pull out the camera too to be like, you got to show everybody this. Everybody has to know.
Try to keep it low key now because I think it's more fun when nobody knows and you just randomly just pull it out and just start going. I like that shock. That's my party trick now.
So. Let's go, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a thing of art.
Well, I mean, there's so much, even with just like yo-yos or any form of like thing that you have to hyper fixate on has proven really well for the necessity of obsession that's needed for being a DP.
Yeah.
Of like the quality of light and like the precision, like you're very calculated with that.
Yeah.
And I've had many people say that about you is like, there's like a lot of DPs just play and you're good at playing too, but like you have like this like precision of like perfection, like of everything from the height of the camera to the focal length to I mean, but a lot of that is done for you in pre-production, and that's how that should be.
Sure,
but that's one of the biggest compliments I've heard of you is that it's like, oh my gosh, Andrew's so locked in on like what's there and what can suddenly be able to like break that mold and then just play. But it's like your plan's already set, so like you have the ability to play because you're locked in.
I guess I'm either a pro or con. I'm a tweaker a little bit, so I'm constantly like moving stuff or tweaking stuff or pushing probably right up until we hit record. But I mean, I guess I just there's a certain standard for something that I have in my mind, and I'm like as close as I can get to getting there. Although in later years, I'm thinking more about if it's almost perfect, then it's perfect.
And working with Andrew on the movie Brooker, that was what's great about it, because I came from working as a DP earlier on in my career too, and I appreciate the tweaking and the nuances, but I found out pretty soon, like working with actors, like need more headspace. I mean, there's some people who can direct actors and DP their movies and things like that, but I just much prefer to focus. And so knowing I could work with someone who's taking it to that extra level to the last second before we hit record, it brings a lot of confidence in my brain too. A lot of like relief knowing like somebody's really watching out for the look of the film.
Right.
I've worked with lots of DPs, and most of them have been really great. A couple times you get people who are like, "Oh, that's good enough," and you have to push them a little bit. But I know with him, it's like, fortunately, we can kind of like in a good way fight to the end.
Oh yeah.
To get it where it needs to be. So
You guys are both filmmakers here in Kentucky, and you guys have been able to pull off a feature. What made you think, oh yeah, I can do this?
I mean, it was Brandon. I mean, honestly,
That's what I was gonna say.
yeah, producer, writer of the story for the film, and man, that guy, he's honestly, I think this was like the perfect experience for me as a first feature film, having him being the person who birthed the idea and also producing it, but also just willing to kind of like let go and give us the control.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, everything from crewing up to locations. And I mean, honestly, like I feel compared to him, I kind of feel hands off, even though I spent countless hours thinking about the film. Cause I mean, without him, there's no way it would have happened.
He made it very easy. I feel definitely, we talked about this on the way back from Florida. Just like, man, I couldn't think of a better film to make, a better, production. It was a $300,000 movie, but it felt so much more. I mean, it felt like we had just the best crew, the best people, the best locations. Brandon really did a tremendous amount of work. He and Tanner were the producer, was the other producer. And, but Brandon has really good taste when it comes to just films in general, writing. I mean, he wrote the movie, I think, in 5 weeks. So very short. But he also just did a great job using what he had in front of him. Like that's the best thing to do, I think, for filmmakers is just use what you have. Don't try to reach too far yet. Because then you won't get it done. Get it done by using what's in front of you. And so he really did that. And he found the locations for us. We didn't really have to scout them. And we had maybe 2 weeks of prep in Kentucky before we went down to Florida to shoot it. We got to scout locations really quickly, which is very helpful, of course, but we got to see pictures ahead of time. But he just had he has good sensibilities for what locations would work for us based on budget too, but also based on look and accommodating the crew. Talent, I thought he did a tremendous job with talent, like finding the people that he did.
Yeah.
The ensemble of people that we had was just very diverse, and it just like a lot of movies, I think sometimes indie movies can end up being kind of one note with the talent. Everybody sort of seems like the same character. That wasn't the case. I felt like everybody here really brought something good to the movie that was unique, and that was what's fun about it too, is that he brought people that were professional. I mean, even our star, the guy who plays Brooker, Feniel, he never acted in the movie before, but he was our lead person. But Brandon had such, confidence in him and saw something in him, and he really brought it. The guy he did anything we asked him to do and gave more.
Game to get in the dirt and just all kinds of stuff, man.
Do belly flops into the, I mean, it was he went through it, climbing through weird caves. I think what we're both saying is Brandon for sure had he was the visionary in the first sense of coming up with a story, getting it, making sure it gets done, and then handing it to us and saying it's yours now. He gives us the trust to do it, and he's still doing it. And while we're editing, he's saying I want you guys to have final cut. He sees the vision, so he's a fantastic producer, very spoiled in that regard.
Definitely.
Well, it sounds like you were able to have somebody who was razor focused on story, talent acquisition, and letting go of the reins a little bit there. So he has really good taste, and he's also able to delegate and let you guys run with something.
Yeah.
And at the same time, so that's so valuable on such a minimal budget, 300K for a feature. It's like, oh, we pulled that off. Like that's the kind of budget that you hear about that you're like, okay, we can do this, and you kind of like buckle up a little bit. But with that being said, like there's so many different potentials for crew below the line and above the line to just have like a good idea to empower their department. So when I look at department dynamics of wardrobe and script supervisor and audio and director and camera department, there's enough that one person can do, like Brandon, who can say like, okay, I think we should go like this, but I'm going to let you guys lead and go from there. Like so much of filmmaking is delegation and doing that the best way possible. It starts with the script from there. And sounds like Brandon had an awesome script and was able to just kind of let that all trickle down. But as that's trickling down, you guys have your own ability to delegate to your department heads and do that nimbly and quickly based off of a story that makes sense and you can believe in and whatnot. How do you guys see agility working within small budgets within a feature? What does that look like for you guys to be able to pivot really quick for the sake of the edit, for the sake of your crew and their time? What do pivots look like with that small of a budget?
I know when we went down there, we did do a big pivot where Andrew and I really pressured Brandon to make some big changes to the script. It wasn't huge. It was just some things, once you change something, there's a domino effect on down the line for story. And so we pulled a bit of an all-nighter, Andrew and Brandon and Tanner and I and a couple other people were just like, how can we make this make sense? How can we make this, better? And so even after having started a couple days of shooting, we were like, okay, before we go any further, we really got to like figure this out. Can this make sense? Or can we up this a little bit? And so that was the big first pivot, was like getting down there, knowing that we shot today, we're talking about it tonight, we're shooting tomorrow. And what we talk about tonight dictates what we shoot tomorrow. Yeah. So that was the first one.
Don't mess up.
Yeah, exactly. So like,
good advice.
But what was great about that kind of pivot is that everybody trusted everybody. And it wasn't the case where people are just agreeing with each other. That's why I love working with Andrew, is because Andrew, in a positive, cordial way, will fight for things. Like we'll have good, constructive sort of conversations and maybe arguments about like, this could be better this way. And I appreciate that, because it's just like, that's making us better. If it's not just agreeing with me on everything all the time, it's like, hey, we can see a better way out of this or into it. And so the same thing happened with Brandon and Tanner and all the other people there. So that was the first big pivot. But I think from then on, I didn't really feel like we were missing anything. Like we didn't have like fancy technocranes or Steadicam or drones even. I mean, Andrew shot most of this on a Dana dolly, so it was pretty simple.
That's awesome.
But I didn't feel like we missed it. I didn't feel like we were needing it. I think we all agreed, like, this is what it is. We're going to do the best we can with what we have. And I think that trickled into the way we delegated and dealt with our crew. And so the crew just became a big family. It didn't feel like above the line or below the line. It just felt like we were all just one unit, giving high fives. You can tell people were watching the monitors and enjoying what we were doing, and it just felt good. So yeah, when there were pivots, everybody knew what we were doing, because we were very good, I think, at explaining to everyone what the day is going to look like, what we're trying to shoot, what we hope to accomplish. So I didn't really feel like we sacrificed a ton given the small budget.
That's awesome.
It was kind of designed that way too, even from the get-go, because I remember I had mentioned we were doing a commercial, and I said, hey, there's this camera. It's super high quality camera. It basically sees in the dark. And oh, by the way, it's like this big, it's tiny. And so
it's also right there.
Yeah. And so I think, at least for me, because it's like smaller camera, smaller support equipment, which means less people. So it's designed in a way where we can kind of pivot and we can kind of just pick up the camera and go do things quickly without a ton of people. I think that's a large part of how we were able to accomplish so much in, the time that we had, as far as many locations as we had. And, because we didn't need to put up, condors and large lights in the sky and run generators and have more crew and, all those kind of things, because of the the ecosystem that we had built around the equipment as well. So I think that's probably another contributing factor for how we were able to accomplish what we did.
Yeah, because we could have easily had a luxury. I had a friend who has an Alexa Mini who was going to donate it to the cause, but we just were like, while that sounds cool and would be great for behind the scenes, and I love shooting on the Alexa. We do it for commercials all the time. But Andrew and I worked hard. He showed me how we could get a great look out of the FX3. Did some night tests. I was pretty blown away by it. There was one scene in particular with one of the characters sitting in a truck at night that was essentially lit by a tube
lights, yeah,
red lights and green lights that were like 200 yards away, and it just looked perfect. It was great. I was like, if we were to do this with another camera, we would have had to have so much gear, so much time.
Yeah.
So you basically just took some Asteras 200 yards away so that you can have like that same fall off type effect.
Yeah, just flew them up on some C-stands.
Yeah.
That were sandbagged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a camera that could compensate for that.
Yeah.
Like you were given just like Brandon as a producer was able to like set you guys free and like he was able to work with he was able to kind of like produce a good story that had big pivots that are tied with it. And he chose people to do that. You chose gear to do that, which is basically kind of like, okay, cool. Like I know that this crew can pull it off due to their experience and stuff like that, but you were able to strip back, just like Brandon did with a budget and with people and the amount of people and stuff. You chose a system that could make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, because we were kind of talking about it earlier, but for tweaking lighting and everything, but it's the more I'm putting into the camera and the lenses and all the equipment, the more I'm taking away from art. And the more I'm putting into lighting and tweaking, like the less takes that we're going to get in each location. So it's kind of a balance between everything. So for this, it's like having a camera system that was smaller, lighter, more managed by less people, more sensitive. It gives us time to kind of get those things that arguably, this is probably not a great thing for me to say, but my department is less important than everything else because it's what's in the box that really matters. So the more that we can accomplish that, especially on a smaller budget, I think the better that the movie's going to look.
On the same token, I guess I thought Andrew was really smart about picking this camera because now we're not taxing the crew. Like the crew is able to sort of think artistically, and because we have a small crew of sometimes maybe 4 or 5 people in terms of grip and lighting.
Yeah.
And so, I think having that smaller crew able to focus on the finessing of things rather than the big moves and standing outside with diffusions with the wind blowing, like it's, keeping people safe, keeping people interested for the amount of gear that we have or don't have. And so I thought Andrew did a great job by working out a system so that people felt more involved and they felt like they were actually doing something, that they weren't being taxed so much, they weren't wearing themselves out so much. So even if we did end up in a 12-hour day, people were still like leaving, giving high fives. It felt good because it was just I think it was a very thoughtful production.
I've heard many directors say like the best crews that I've worked with are the ones that get to go home to their families each night, and that's typically like a soundstage comedy production and stuff like that. And it's kind of like now cool, I get to go to work, and it's very sustainable. And how you're able to make dollars and time sustainable is really important. And I remember talking to you about how kind of like you feel like you stumbled on something that feels like it was at least a breakthrough for you, if not for like, oh, this is different than how I've seen the industry in general run, which is the ability to pivot mid-take for the sake of the edit and be like, nope, we don't need that. We need this. We need this very quickly, and let's get it. Got it.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Can you speak a little bit to that kind of like agility that you've found as a breakthrough for you?
I mean, honestly, that's kind of just a compliment to Gary, because if it's, we're doing a scene and we're running through this thing and we recognize that, oh, we only need like this one line, or we only need this one look or whatever, instead of, running through the whole thing all over again. It's like, let's just get this one piece. But I think that's more of his mind, of like kind of an editor mindset of we're putting a puzzle together. We don't need this whole other section. We just need this one piece. And so I think that's, I mean, I feel like we did that all the time.
Oh, I'd love to have the luxuries of just like 6 cameras doing the whole take all the way through, and Fincher style take 99. Actually, I wouldn't want to do that. That sounds crazy. But I'd like to have the luxury to be able to do it. But no, I think that, like Andrew's saying, like, yeah, there's just times where it's just like, we know what we need in the cut. So let's just get that piece and move on and respect people's time. And because, everybody's working for pennies pretty much on a small budget like that. So it's like, let's get what we can. It's all a balance, right? You have to find this place where, like, we want to make art. We want to spend hours and hours on this. We want to keep going. And I know Andrew and I could both work through the night 24 hours a day doing it, but that's not on everybody else. They shouldn't have to do that too. So we want to be respectful. But yeah, I think that we were able to, be efficient and be mindful and intentional and respectful of people and the crew and the production schedule.
What are things that you both have learned slowly but surely about how to find more work in a narrative world that feels like it's sometimes like crumbling a little bit in like LA fires and who's to say where's to work narratively when crews just trying to make their bag and move on. What kind of things have you guys learned recently that can be a support for people to look for more jobs and stuff,
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'm still trying to ask that question or still trying to figure that out. I guess my true north, specifically in cinematography, is try to do work that I love and that I'm proud of. And I hope that everything else just kind of falls in line, I guess. There's not any, there's not any secret code or avenues or anything that, that I've discovered or whatever. But I'm hoping if I can do work and if I can have a portfolio that represents who I am, then the right people will, will find each other.
I think as a director, it's, you could think it's getting harder and harder for people, but it is a pretty tough barrier to entry in a lot of ways, especially now that there are so many more people directing. There's so many more people from when I started now directing or getting into directing. I'd say, like, if someone is new getting into it, you just have to work. You gotta go shoot things, probably do some spec. I know people say don't do spec, go do paid work. But I think spec is important if you want to do the kind of work that you want to do. So 90% of the reason that you will get a job is because you have it on your reel already. Most of the time, people pick me or pick other directors because the agency and the client see something on my reel that looks like what they're trying to do. I get it. It gives them confidence. It gives them security, knowing like, okay, we want to do this dog commercial with a dog running up on the counter and coming down and jumping and doing backflip. Well, I've never done it before, but Gary's done this before. So obviously he knows how to do it or she knows how to do it. So let's give them this job. It's rare that you'll find an ad agency specifically that will just give you a chance because you have nice stuff on your reel. So I would say to people who are getting into commercials is pick kind of a box to be in. Doesn't mean you can't have multiple boxes, but like mine right now is healthcare. I do a lot of healthcare commercials. It wasn't something that I chose. It's just something I started doing. People saw them, so I started getting more. And so now I do healthcare commercials for multiple hospitals. And I like it. It's nice. I get to meet new people. It's a bit of narrative. It's a bit of visual style. It's also like little heartwarming kind of things that you can do. It's sincere most of the time. And it's a great little pocket to be in. It's a great box to be in. I would love to do mountain bike commercials and Nike ads and Audi ads just like everybody else would, but I'm not in those boxes yet. But if I wanted to be, then I probably have to do spec work and show someone that I can do it.
Well, you've also had a lot of work with G&E in the past. And like I see some tech related things across the medical field and appliance field and stuff like that, like boxes with electronics in them, stuff like that can somewhat cross-pollinate a little bit. And I've seen some kind of like success in being able to kind of like, yeah, cool. Yeah, similar. Yeah. Like you pick enough shots or like, yeah, that could also be a phone or something like that. And the credit card shot or whatever that's supposed to look like for similarity. And that's always nice in order to kind of like have something that can also translate into something else. And yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I think for, directing, I mean, I got into it by shooting, editing. I was a muralist for a while for a theater for a long time. I was a chef, I rode mountain bikes. I did all these things that I feel like I still bring with me on set. Like there's a discipline to those things that I think you can bring with you on set as well. And it all kind of speaks to it to some degree. So I think like getting a lot of experience, just living, being a breather, a person who lives life is always good. I have 3 kids. I think that helps with how I see the world, through their eyes in a lot of ways, especially for healthcare. And so I think a good director a lot of times is not just an artist, but is someone who can bring art and real life to the screen in some sort of way. But also like you have to like be good with clients too. Like it's not just, there are plenty of directors who can just kind of like bully their way through projects and say, we're going to do it this way. And that's great on them. And I know a lot of clients like when there's a kind of a director who's just like rigid. I'm more of a collaborator. I like to sort of overplan things so that there's time on the shoot or in the edit to sort of make changes, to pivot when we need to give clients who are paying us hundreds of thousands of dollars for the projects a little bit of say in certain things. But yeah, I think for a first time or new directors, just know that like you're going to get told no a lot. A lot of times there are 10 directors up for the job, and then there are 3, and then you get to write a treatment. And a lot of times the treatment can be good and the treatment call with the agency can be good, but it's really going to be about your work. So if you get called to the table with 2 other directors, I think that's a win, even if you don't get the job, because you're being seen. But my wife told me many years ago, 20 years ago, paint your walls with rejection slips. Get turned down.
Nice. Yeah.
Just go. Just keep going, and then you'll find it. But yeah, I'm rambling now. But I think like it's really just sort of like if you have an idea in mind for the kind of commercials you want to do, I would say just do them. Find some friends, film it on an iPhone. They look great. Just use what you have, because really they're going to look at story, and they're going to want to see that you know how to put it together within a very specific 30 seconds, 60 seconds, maybe sometimes more now that streaming's a bigger thing. But they want it to be proven. They want to see that you have it on there.
I'm glad you brought that up with story being kind of king still, which would bring me kind of like full circle to both narrative and commercial type stuff. Stories that you're interested in telling and how you like to tell them. Andrew, with your time with like the ASC and having to define your thesis for like being a cinematographer and what that means to you, to be honest about your work and what is it that you're trying to say when you're as a storyteller. Mm-hmm. And I think I remember you saying honesty was like a huge part of that.
Truth.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Truth is the foundation of communication. Without truth, all communication falls apart. So the essence of everything, visually that I'm making is based in truth in some way, even if it's something that doesn't make any sense in the story. If it's magical, but it makes sense in that story, it's that truth. So I see that with story. I see it with lighting. Where's this light coming from? It's coming from this lamp here. So that's kind of the foundation for everything for me. So a lot of those, it's funny because going back to like the script, I'm like, well, how does it make logical sense? What's that truth in that story? So those little things are important to me. So,
or truth for the character.
Yeah,
for that character.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. Man, Gary, what about you?
That's the one thing. Like that's when we were. Not to bring back Brooker again. I keep plugging it.
No. It's all about that too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's kind of the thing. Is like we had a very little time to prep. But I think what we try to do is like, let's put some blinders on where we can. Like, what is our lighthouse here? What is the thing we always come back to when we're in a scene? We just don't know quite how to get our way through it or in and out of it. What do we come back to? Something simple. And for us, it was always like, this is Brooker's movie. It's called Brooker. It's his movie. It's his POV. So, for instance, on some shots, even though we broke these rules, we won't be inside of a room waiting for Brooker to come in.
Mm-hmm.
We did that once. We'll always be out there with Brooker being let in to the room. So what I mean, like, so, or, so it's always from Brooker's
with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going down the road with him. And so, that was something that, or we would decide like, when does the camera move, when doesn't it move. We didn't have a lot of gear. We only had the Dana dolly and maybe a jib and the gimbal, a couple small things. And so it was good to have those limitations, because then you get to really focus on the story part, the acting. And so, yeah, having those sort of like set kind of based rules that you can break to start with just makes it a lot easier, especially when you can agree and we can both commit to like, yes, this is Brooker's POV. It's a subjective sort of thinking. And so then there's an agreement, at least to start with. And then when you're like butting heads in a good way, it's like, okay, let's remember we said this, like, okay, yeah, but this, and we can try these things. And if there's room to experiment with your idea and then my idea and see kind of what wins, and you can feel it out. And sometimes like, I kind of think I know what I'm doing. I think I've got an idea for how this could work. I think it'll cut together in my brain. And Andrew's like, no, it's not going to cut. And sometimes we have to like, oh, let's just try it. And then either it works or it doesn't. We're both surprised and we move on.
I'm like, yeah, you're right.
But sometimes it takes, I like that he doesn't think it'll work, because then it makes me think, well, I really got to figure it out. I got to prove it, instead of just being like, yeah, it'll be fine. And I can just be lazy about it. It's like, no, you have someone, that's what you want, are people that are kind of like push you to make sure it's like good, you know?
Yeah. Man, that takes a certain level of grit and pushing forward with collaboration. What I'm curious with what was the biggest thing that you learned in having to push through making this feature? Like what was the thing you had to learn the most, or maybe it was having to take away something more and not be as involved? Like, what was something that you learned the most on making Brooker?
How to really work with actors. With commercials, commercial actors are fantastic because they hit a mark, say a line, precise. It's like, we've got 30 seconds, you got 60 seconds. We're directing, not that actors aren't important in commercials, they're very important in commercials, but you're telling them kind of what to do. They don't get to have a lot of nuance and say in it. They don't get to try, oh, but I think my character might be this. It's like, no, it's this, and it's exactly this because we cast you because this is how the agency wrote it. And so it's very specific. It's very designed. Working with the actors on Brooker, they brought so much to it that I wasn't even expecting. You got it in your mind how they're going to be and what these characters are going to be like. And then they just do something and you're like, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I don't know why I didn't think of that. And so it's allowing them the freedom to do that. And so every morning when we go in, while Andrew's sort of working with the crew, he'll be working with us too, watching us rehearse. So we'll start off by, let me back up. The night before, I would like draw storyboards or read the script, the pages we're going to do for the next day. Write a little shot list in the very early morning, draw storyboards, make the rest of my shot list. We would get to set, all that would go away except for the shot list. And then I would read through with the actors. We would just do a read through. And then we'd get up and do a bit of like a blocking kind of thing with Andrew to figure out where people would go. And I would just let them go. Like, this is the room. This is what's happening. Where would you go and it go naturally? And then we could say like, okay, well, maybe this would be better if there was an action going towards the exit this way. So let's flip this around. So it's really just letting the actors, or rather challenging the actors to really dig into the story, dig into their character and see where they would really be in space and time. And so then Andrew can decide where we're putting lights, where we're putting camera. And so for me, the biggest thing was just working with actors, submitting to the things that they thought were right or wrong with the characters, what they wanted to do, how they felt about certain things. A couple of actors that we worked with really had great ideas and took things a certain sort of direction. Camila specifically played Jessie. She's just like this sprite. This just had so much energy, and I didn't want to turn that down because like Brooker is very intense and solid and kind of this, and she's so and just really active. And so I was like, that's great contrast.
Some good salt and pepper right there.
Perfect. Yeah. And so it was like, how do we, when I work with kids a lot in commercials, and it's like, you can only direct them so far. So how do you just let it be a game and use that energy to your advantage? And I think the same thing could be said for certain actors. at least in my experience. I'm sure the next movie will be a little different to some degree, but I really enjoyed that part of it. That was definitely the hardest part for me.
Now, I like what you said about submit to actors. Like that's interesting because it might take a specific kind of actor to allow your ability to kind of like let them have creative reign. On other cases, it's like, gosh, no, it's just a really difficult actor director relationship, and it's a struggle. But if you pick the right actor to be able to be them fully with their character, and there's some level of understanding between the actor and the director is like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like do your thing, and instead of like, no, that way, which it calls for a lot of direction and dictatorship when it comes to the sake of the story. But I think it's interesting that you said submit to them, let them do their thing.
Yeah, and sometimes it's submitting, sometimes it's just like a taking over. It's still a collaborative thing. We're both submitting to an idea, or like, hey, we have time. Let's try something, and let's just kind of see where it takes us. Or somebody, we had an actor on set one time say like, I really don't think that my character would slap this person or do that, and so instead of being like, well, I want you to do it, you're like, okay, well, let's see where we are with this. Why do you think that? What do you think they would do? This character, this character well because you're living it, and so like we were able to come to a conclusion or come to an idea for what this person would do, and it made sense because we were, she's really thinking about it, not just being like, I just don't want to slap the person. Right. It's like I think the character wouldn't slap this person because XYZ. But that was a lot of fun. Like really kind of like, that's the next thing I want to do is like take acting classes. Just so I feel like I could be a better actor's director, knowing kind of what the steps that they go through, or like trying to live it a little bit. So
I strongly agree with that. Like I've only done one short film that I acted in, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrifying and vulnerable. And like, and I was given some direction. I was like, oh gosh, that's interesting. Like I wouldn't have done it that way. And I was like, oh, okay. And so it's just a brief glimpse into like how that headspace is supposed to operate. It's really hard.
It's really hard. I watched people when we're doing the movie. I was just like, I remember we were setting up lights, and two of the leads were just in it. Everybody's kind of yapping and chatty and happy, and they're just like,
in the zone. Yeah.
And one of the grips was like, are they okay? I was like, heck yeah, they are. They're in the zone, man. They're feeling it. They're ready. So once you're done with that light, let's do it. Let's capture this.
Yeah.
But it has to be hard to like put yourself there mentally and feel those feelings. We get to just watch it. They really have to, like, if they're doing a great job, they're feeling it, they're emoting, and then it's like, okay, now I got to get out of it. And they're all different too. This was great. This movie had several actors all have different sort of ways of doing things. Josh, who plays Tiki, he wants to know deep backstory, like get into the weeds about this character, really understand like why, like what he in the movie. Not to give it away, he has a splinter in his finger. And this splinter comes from a magical piece of wood that's kept him alive for like 150 years. And so it's like, he's like, when I try to pull it out, does it just dig deeper into myself? Like, what keeps me from pulling it? And it's like, I don't know, man. Those are great questions. Like, I love when people can think a little deeper about those things. And then, but some actors, they're just like, where do you want me to stand? What do you want me to do?
Right.
I just knew it was in great hands with Andrew. In terms of shooting it, I felt like we had a great style, ideas for things, kind of leaning into the grittiness of that camera that can be had with it, and its limitations, which I felt like we really weren't that limited, to be honest. At least it didn't seem that way. He hit it well if we were, and so I felt like we got a great look. It felt like all those '90s movies that I loved back in the day. That's kind of was our other lighthouses. Like, if we were making this movie in the '90s, how would we do it?
Yeah.
And what does that look like for you when you had to like figure that out for assimilating with vision and be a servant? To the director and kind of like piece that together. What was the biggest thing you learned, and how did you do that?
Yeah, I mean this was my first feature, and so going into it, I'm like, man, I'm not gonna leave anything out there. Like, I'm just gonna kill it every day. I'm gonna give it 110%. But honestly, that was probably my biggest takeaway. Was it was probably maybe halfway through production, maybe a little more than that. But I woke up one morning and my back was like killing me. Like I couldn't like pick anything up. I was like, because it's a marathon. It's not just a sprint. And I'm the guy that's like, there's a like a poster or something that has like boss versus leader, and leader is the guy that's like in the front of the pack and he's pulling the sled with all the all the workers or whatever. And I was like, I want to be that guy. So I'm like, I'm picking up C stands. I'm freaking pulling the Dana dolly around without asking for help, and I'm operating the gimbal without the ready rig. Should have had a ready rig. Lesson learned. And so it caught up to me because I didn't want to ask the 2 seconds for help. You need to do that. That's a part of the role is the delegation, is your crew is there, they're your resource, they want it, they want to help, they want to work. So do it, ask them, because they will help. And even something of being a mentor to some people, where if they're a little newer in the role, like be that mentor. Like don't just point them and tell them what to do, but like show them the way. That's something that I'm definitely gonna take with me from this project, and something that was very real because it had caught up to me in a physical way, which was actually a really great exercise because I could not lift anything. So I was literally hands off. So I'm like, all right, guys, you got to lift this movie right now because I need it. And they did. They stepped up.
Yes, sir.
And we did it. And my back was better in like a day or something. I don't remember. But, yeah.
It's like, well, man, if I could have done that beforehand, I just wouldn't be like acting like old grandpa over here trying to.
I felt terrible, man, because I'm like, this is the movie. This is we're getting the chance to do this, and I want to perform, and I want to do well, and we all want the movie to be great, and I can't physically get there, So, but no, they were great. We got through it.
Man, right on.
Yeah.
That is a good lesson learned. I think you should ask for help. They're there. They want to be there. They want to do things. I don't think anybody really I would say 90%, 99% people that work on movies want to be actively working and doing things and being involved. Nobody wants to just sit around by crafty necessarily. I do sometimes, but not normally. So I think that it's good. You got to definitely ask for help. Because, it takes 3 more minutes.
Yeah.
But then your back is better. People are learning. People feel engaged and involved and needed and wanted and a part of it all. So it all works out.
It's kind of like I like what you'd mentioned earlier about like you bring the whole of yourself to set, which is the mountain bike rider, the one who loves music, the one who has traveled a lot, the one who has kids. Like I'm all those things, and I'm bringing that to set, and I'm not just this rigid thing. I'm malleable, and I'm bringing a lot to the table. But when you see that you're compromising yourself by working too hard, micromanaging, whatever. When it's like, oh well, now I'm just this narrow slice of the pie chart of my full self. But instead, if I was able to just kind of be able to breathe a little bit more and ask for help, reach out to communicate more. I don't know. Communication sounds like it's a huge tool for being able to bring your full self there, instead of just like lacking collaboration when you need to communicate a little bit better.
Yeah,
that can help you bring your full self.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a third of the job for me. It's there were some days we're in small locations, like physically small locations, and I was like, I won't need my headset. I won't need the walkie. We're like right here. It's totally wrong. My communication, that's my power. If I don't have my radio, I have no power. Because there's, the guys are outside. We're in like a small, what do you call it? A trailer. And I'm stuck in the back of the trailer. It's like I can't do anything. I can't do lights. I can't, my ACs can't help me out. So communication's everything.
Batteries charged.
Yep.
Yeah, I've noticed him whispering into it often. Even if we're rolling, it's like pan the right left or pan that light left.
Yeah,
little things. It's like
tweaking.
Those little times add up.
Yeah, that's good. Well, what kind of stories are you all wanting to tell in the future, and what kind of work do you want to share? What kind of stories are meaningful to you? And maybe let's start with Brooker. Why was Brooker a meaningful story? And then we'll talk about other stuff too. Why was Brooker meaningful to you guys to make?
It's fun. It's like it's hard to sell it for me anyway, in the sense that like I made it, we made it, and it's like I would love to be able to watch the movie and erase the memory of having, bring it back, but erase for a short time, having made the movie, just watch it from another point of view.
Yeah.
But no, Brooker was fun because it was just like what Andrew was saying. It was like, this is a guy who, he needs to ask for help sometimes. Like he is very stoic. He thinks he can do things on his own and ends up causing more harm than good. His mother is sick. His sister they want him to be home, but he thinks that what he's doing by like going out and making money and sending money back to the family is the good thing. When it's like family just wants to be with you. They don't need your money. They want you to be close. That's what family really is. And so he just didn't really see that. It took him almost losing his family to understand that and to see that their things are more important than his adventures and money. And so he needed to reach out for help too and ask for help in a certain sort of way. So that was there's a good little life lessons in there, I think too, even though it is a sort of this mystical kind of magical modern day Indiana Jones in Florida.
That's definitely the elevator pitch or the log line that I've heard. I was like, that sounds awesome.
It was a lot of fun to make. Like I think that I hope that people will want to watch this movie a couple times. It's not so it's definitely not an A24 film. It's not terribly heady. It's just sort of fun. It kind of like it just zooms right through. It's an hour and a half, so it's an easy fast watch.
I love an easy fast watch.
Yeah, even Netflix now has 90-minute movies in their category, so it's like there's definitely a need for that. But I think it's fun to watch. There's plenty of layers, plenty of good characters, some cool effects, some action, some drama.
A little bit of everything.
It does.
Yeah.
Lots of little kind of like
not bad
pieces of genre. Again, like I said in the beginning, I really have to hand it to Brandon. So that movie started as another script called Trilobite. And that was a really deeper, a little much darker sort of tone movie. But we budgeted that one out when we tried to do it, and it was around $10 million. And we were just like, yeah, that's not going to be our first movie. So we did another one within the same sort of lore, the same idea of like relic hunters and mystical, magical sort of features. And then the next one ended up being about $4 million. And so we're like, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, keep going, buddy. Yeah, like that took off 6. So
yeah,
pretty good.
That's pretty good. And to Brandon's credit, he did this in a very short amount of time, just back on the keyboard. And now 5 weeks after that, we're on Brooker version, I think 12 of the script. And we got it to, 250, 300K, which is great. And we still have some of the same sort of magical pieces in there. I mean, there's caves made out of styrofoam in a church. There's all sorts of just really cool tricks that we were able to do in making the movie to make it feel like, at least like $1 million movie.
Mm-hmm. That was always a goal of mine, is like, how do we make this look as expensive as possible? Like on the screen,
Yeah.
Using every trick that I have up my sleeve essentially to do it.
Yeah.
But I think it's great. I think it's gonna be fun.
I'm very excited
Fun
by
to
it.
watch.
Well, what does that look like for? I feel like your storytelling. You're always interested in story first, and
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
what are we actually like saying here? Roger Deakins, I think, would say the same thing of like, well, send me a script. Like nobody's got any good scripts. I'm not like interested in
Yeah.
anything. It's why it's not working, and you're compelled to good storytelling, and
Yeah, I mean, story first. I mean, every decision I make is based off the script. There's no, I'm not doing something because I think it looks pretty or because it's fun or whatever. It always comes from the script. So that's kind of that logic based, approach, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I just love telling good human stories. This one especially, it's a guy that's seems simple but has complex emotions and situations, and it's just a story about. I mean, ultimately good versus evil. And I just love that kind of traditional, kind of storytelling, kind of a modernist type story. But
that's great.
Yeah.
what does that look like for future projects for you? What's the next feature that you're excited to tell? And
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like I like everything. I'm easy to entertain. I like bad movies too. Like,
oh yeah,
I watch everything. I think it's just it's fun to see what challenges filmmakers come up with or have to deal with. But I think that I really like stories that can have a lot of grit to them as well, but also just make you feel kind of good at the end too. I think there's we can always use more positivity, and I don't even care if it's toxic positivity, if that's a word or not. But like, I think that we could use that more hope. I think in this, especially nowadays, it feels like the climate is sort of like somewhat depressing overall, especially in social media. And so I think if we can find humor and laughter and live, love, laugh kind of moments.
Let's go.
But I think it's true. I mean, I think that it doesn't have to come in the form of just a comedy movie. I think there are some great movies that can have some scary moments, but also have that sincere sort of like uplifting kind of feel to them. So I don't know. I really love, also just to sort of pivot a little bit, I love sci-fi movies. I love or sci-fi shows. I just watched Foundation, just a lot of fun. It's a beautiful show.
Good things. I need to watch it. Yeah.
It's awesome. It looks like a really long movie. It's just really well done. So sci-fi I'm into. I think I've always been into to futurism, if you will, or and so yeah, I think just exciting things where I can just lean back and tune out. I feel like I'm pretty good at that. And like, people wonder if I can watch a movie without critiquing it. I can turn it off. I can just watch and not think about
it's pretty great
or things like that.
Can you turn it off?
Sometimes, if the movie's good, absolutely,
yeah.
But if I'm distracted or it's like it's easy to start thinking with that brain. So.
Yeah,
I think movies like magical realism would be a really fun one to play with. I always love Michel Gondry's work. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, just the cool camera tricks they did with forced perspective and all the dream world stuff is just really beautiful poem. Things like that. I'm still very much into the visuals of things. I always feel like I'm not a writer. I wish I had the patience and the intelligence to be a writer. That's really hard. Maybe someday I'll get somewhere close to that, but I feel like since I don't do that much, I very much lean on visuals and the visual storytelling of things. And so yeah, I think that's why I really like magical realism, even if it is in the form of comedy. Kind of like Sorry to Bother You, if you saw that movie.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun too.
Yeah,
just
good.
It's just quirky, kooky stuff, but
yeah, that's fun. Yeah, there's I like the level of art department that a lot of those movies can afford to have. What did you guys see with art department with Brooker? Like what was like styrofoam walls, you were able to make it look.
We had a whole cave, man.
Yeah, if you got a cave, that sounds pretty great.
Yeah.
But but also like locations solve so much of art department. As is depending if you're like in a nature setup or an Airbnb or something like that you rent out and whatnot. But like what did art department look like in Brooker, and how was it able to afford you the nice aesthetics that like Eternal Sunshine had an awesome art department. It was tons of fun. It was also like run and gun and random and chaos and just beaming lights everywhere, so you didn't see the full of the space. But it was able to have like so many different locations, and I was just a cacophony of art department that was going on there. But how did your budget afford the art department that you had? I haven't seen it, but I can imagine it was that you had to do a lot of finessing with that.
Man, yeah. I feel like I don't know how we did it, to be honest, because
Brandon.
Yeah, I mean,
it comes back to Brandon.
It's just Brandon
and Tanner.
I think because it's normally like, I would love to, in pre-production, to go through and, look at color palette, and we're looking at, camera and lensing and all this stuff, and, making sure everything's, coordinated and well. But we would turn up the set and I'd be like, man, it's like the wardrobe is going perfect with this. Like we've got all these like cool like props and all this stuff, and everything was just kind of aligned. But yeah, it was just Brandon who made it happen. We could just turn up, and it's like we have this amazing playground to work in.
Yeah.
You had what you needed to get it done.
Yeah.
So Brandon had the taste and the sort of the vision to find places that were great, and Tanner really did a great job of procuring those things and making sure that it was scheduled properly and that everyone was safe. And we had a couple beach shots. We had a really cool mansion with a funky pool. He was like line producer, and Brandon also did art department too. So he did a lot.
Wearing a couple hats.
Definitely.
You got it when you're working with that. Yeah.
Yep.
But his brother, Brandon's brother, also is a designer and worked for Universal Studios. So he has this whole he works at a theater and at the school. We filmed at a college. What was the name of the college? Eckerd. Yeah. Just beautiful campus.
Yeah.
And so the locations were just great. We had so many great locations. We were at this park that had these really beautiful funky trees. All the roots were exposed, and it was just these beautiful Spanish moss trees.
Yeah.
And it just looked very strange. And it was kind of
that's
perfect.
awesome.
And we were going to film here, but Brandon also thought, he has kids and he has to work. He owns his production company. It was just easier and faster for him to take care of things. So we're here. I've got kids. I have commercials I have to work on. So it's hard for me to just go down there and spend a couple months doing prep. So he just took the reins in that regard and found a lot of these locations. And fortunately, his brother is, like I said, he's a great designer. He built this giant, massive cave out of foam. We were using spray glue as spider webs and dust, and it looked fantastic. He made the mask, which I'm really excited for everybody to see the mask that Brooker uses in the movie. It looks like petrified wood with moss, and it's made of foam. It just looks awesome. Gosh. And so, yeah, we really got spoiled for the money. The money's on screen. It's all on screen.
So
and
if you want a good art department, hire someone who works for Universal, and cool, there'll be a pinch hitter, and also it's gonna look pretty great. And
also the know-how of having the walls that we can move and make the place look bigger than it really was. Because there's some places where we're kind of cheating geography a little bit.
Tell me about that a little bit with the light that you were using for it. You're able to make it bigger than what it is, but I'm sure that involves the absence of light, in order to make it seem bigger, especially being a cave, and stuff like that.
I mean, we could have, the main chamber. We did kind of your traditional lights above the set kind of thing, where we had tube lights set up. A lot of it was flashlight only. We were just able to haze it up to kind of obscure, geography, and then move walls around and kind of do some little, inserts here and there, but really just kind of squeeze as much of the juice that we could out of having all those toys to play with. But it was a lot of fun though.
We were in a church, kind of a modern church. It was more of a box building rather than the traditional churches that you'd see here in Louisville. So it was a big open space, probably 30 by 50 maybe.
Something like that.
So we were able to take these sort of 3 walls to make this part of the cave with pillars and some other foreground pieces, and then take other walls and turn them around and make these little corridors, and just repurposing walls to sort of get as much out of it, like you said. And then that was really the only thing that we built, I thought. The rest was sort of found. We were in Brandon's house. That was Luna's house, I guess.
Yep.
In the story.
Yep.
It's a lot of borrowed locations.
Borrowed and rented locations. Brooker lives in an Airstream, so that was a rented Airbnb that we used as Brooker's home. One of the bars that we were in was really great, called the Grindhouse.
Grindhouse, yeah.
Awesome, because it was a full-on movie-themed beer hub where they make their own beer, and they're big into movies, and there's movie paraphernalia all over the walls.
Nice. Great beer, too.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Check it out.
Grindhouse was great. They were super supportive, and they had this stand-up. Was it Jason Voorhees?
The hockey mask.
Sorry, Michael Myers.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And we were shooting there for a few days, and every single time I'd come out of the bathroom, I'd freak out because standing there with a knife, I'm like, I can never get used to it.
Full size.
Man, yeah, not bad. Yeah, I got some extras in there.
So Brandon really got the support of all these people and these locations, and Tanner really did a great job getting it together. So yeah, we just, like I said, we got really lucky in that regard, and had what, like 12 locations, 12 or 13 locations.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah,
Something like that.
How many production days total?
We ended up with 20. So we started with 16, and then we really wanted to have the main villain be more villainous. So we wrote another scene in there, which is really fun. And it was worth going back down to shoot. So we filmed that and a couple other little scenes when we were down there that really sort of tied the room together, so to speak. And so 20 days total. There's a couple little small pickups that Andrew and I are going to do, just tiny little interstitial things that are easy to grab, easy for the most part to grab.
Do you guys think a lot about sound in that edit when you're making the film ahead of time, or is it more just in the moment in post, or like?
I think it's a little bit of both. You know, when we're on set, I am thinking about specifically like there's a scene towards the end of the movie of this time demon, and without giving it away too much, there's just the way this thing looks. And to me, the way it looks also dictates kind of how it sounds and what it's doing to the people in there and what the room feels like. We were really inspired by the movie Annihilation. Like that soundtrack was out of this world. Like I don't know how they did that. But that was really beautiful. So there's lots of these sort of moments that kind of like that was the start of the inspiration on some of them. And then in terms of sound, you know, on the sort of the quote normal sort of things, it's mostly just letting it feel rich and layered. One of the things that I'm hoping we can do, I don't know if it's going to work. It's one of our lighthouses that we are trying to do. Since all the magic comes from this ancient wooden artifacts, these wooden relics, I thought it would be fun to try to see if we can't make all the music come from wooden instruments. So if it's wooden flutes or wooden bamboo sticks clanking together, something that felt very percussive, but maybe there's no strings, but we might need strings, who knows? But something that felt that it had a groove to it and had some, some swagger to it, but also had this sort of semi-tribal kind of feel with just wood instruments, just to sort of like add that layer of like, this is where the relics are wood. Makes sense that so this is something when I talked to Joe, I was like, if we can try to do this, I'm not grounded to it because I would rather it be good than correct in my mind, but it's a good place to start.
Yeah, that's great.
It may not work, but I think it's always good to have a place to start, a foundation to sort of push against, and then I even when talking with Joe, I was like, even if you recorded the sound of like a wooden spoon in a wooden bowl just scraping, and then you slow that down and reverb and do all these strange things to it. Like, that's still within our rules, right?
Right. It's texture, and it has like a heading with kind of like, well, what if it's similar? And like, well, if I can't do this, then maybe I'll try this. It makes me think kind of like, what are if someone's finding themselves struggling to get out of an idea or to make an idea happen, and they're in like to me, it comes with writing a lot of like, oh gosh, I've got way too much exposition. I don't have enough feeling, and I just gotta like break it all up, but I can't get out of here. What's your like creative tool to like, it's not working? How do you dig yourself out of that with collaboration with other people? Like, what does that look like to dig yourself out of the problem?
You just looked at him and be like, well, what do you want to do here?
What do you want, bud?
The easy answer sometimes, which is always like most of the time is the harder one, is like, can you do this in one shot? Like, can you, not a oneer per se, but what could we do to, like, if it is trying to fight through exposition or fight through some sort of way of simplifying, like, how can we do this in a take? Like, what can we do to simplify this thing? Because it's easy to add complexity to anything. I think it's easy to overthink it and add all these layers of nuance, but sometimes it's harder to strip it away. And so, like a cinematographer, a lot of times we'll come into a room and turn all the lights off. Because it's like, if you're starting with all the lights on and I'm trying to figure it out, it's like, it's hard to see the room sometimes, even though it's lit. It's like, turn it off and see what's happening naturally. It's kind of the same thing, I think, for directing a scene, is like, turn everything off for a second, just see what is the objective of the scene. What are we really trying to say? because the scene on its own is like a little mini movie. It's like it has a beginning, middle, and an end. What do we want the audience to feel? What are the characters doing? How's this handing off to the next scene? So let's turn the lights off and just see what the main thing is, and go from there. Start simply.
That's good.
Script intention, 100%. Like, yeah, what's the purpose of the scene? Where do we want to be at the beginning, and then where are we trying to go? And then for me, like visual metaphors or just cinema language, like how do you, what's the best way to do that? Is it a static shot? Are we moving? Is it handheld? Using, I guess, those kind of rules of cinema language can help kind of dictate that path, and then you can decide whether or not you want to break a rule or not.
Can you talk to me about kind of like what that looked like, the difference between a student short film and a short film, which was, we talked about the difference between handheld and static. And how something just felt kind of off.
Yeah.
And like how and why, and like what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, I think this is probably just something that, I don't know, I've picked up as my own sensibilities, because it's broken all the time. But essentially, think of a film that's 100% handheld. To me, there's something off about a handheld shot that's a wide and looking onto a subject. I call it like the bubble. So essentially, where like Gary and I are kind of like in a bubble right now because we're only a couple feet away, but you and we're not in the bubble because we're a little bit further away. We're further removed. So to me, the intimacy of handheld really works when you're in the bubble, and then when you're out of it, it works for a voyeuristic kind of thing, or more of a documentary, or if you're trying to add like verisimilitude, but it doesn't work so much for me. I guess my sensibilities, I would much rather just lock the camera down and take the operator out of it, so you don't feel a person as much as you do just you see the scene. But then when you're in the bubble next to somebody, I want to feel that person. I can feel the handheld. It just feels a little more natural to me. So, but those are just little nuances that maybe some people would disagree with, but those are just kind of things that I'm kind of drawn to.
Yeah, and that was the kind of a rule that he made up too on Brooker that I really enjoyed. Was it's just like setting another boundary. Like, hey, if we're going to be handheld, then my feet aren't going to move. If I'm going to be handheld on something, I'm going to still be locked here.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to move around and wiggle around, it's like, okay, that makes sense to me, because then once you start moving, it is documentary, right? It feels a little more verite in some sort of ways. But it was those were good things to say in the beginning, like, we are going to do this when this happens, and we're not going to do these things. And it's like, it just simplifies production in a lot of ways.
That's a really good way to solve problems, is to strip back so that you can get it in one, or it's like, but how meaningful is something versus just your darling that you got to kill, and it's like, well, like it's just said in this way, and it saves everyone's time and energy instead of making it a thing that has to be there. Like and a good storyteller would be agile with trying to get the point across quicker to say what you mean. Get there, get it quick, and understand that. Talk to me about pre-production and how you can say it ahead of time and like simplify that process so that you're ready to rock and roll on production.
Yeah, with commercials, I do more commercials than movies, of course. I've only done the one movie, but with pre-production for the movie,
you also had a short film.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's true. Flowbic was a lot of fun. That was about a 15-minute short film, and there was a decent amount of pre-pro on that. That one was just more so like, again, digging into what do these scenes mean. Flowbic was a whole like weird fever dream. It was a mess in a good way.
It was a good time.
A lot of fun. Very weird. Some things that we foreshadowed but never paid off. Sorry about that. But it was more so just sort of like, for each of these things, for movies especially, it's sort of like just, it's easy to want to over prep things, I think, and overthink things, which I think is good to an extent. And then just to build the confidence and then sort of shove them away. Like he remembers we shared the Airbnb for Brooker, and every morning I'm just drawing storyboards just to sort of think visually through some things. Even if it's simple, like talking heads type stuff, it's like, all right, I know I want to get a medium close up, or why the close up here. And so I have it, and then write the shot list from it, and then put those storyboards away, because where we are filming isn't going to look like the storyboard. So I don't want to make him feel locked into angles. But I think with prep for movies, again, it goes back to like the actors. I think that you know, in this movie, you know, I wish we could have done more like Ari Aster sort of cool tricks and long one takes down here that hand off to this and do all these kind of cool camera tricks, but we just didn't have quite the luxury for that. We lose a camera.
Yeah, we lost well, your guys' camera's good, so that's fine. It makes me think kind of like what is important with play, with prep already being made. How could you like suddenly break the prep?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you were saying about the storyboards. I mean, the storyboards are that's for him and for me. But yeah, ultimately when we get there, I mean, that's so you can understand the script, you understand intention, you understand where you're, what you're trying to say. But then when you get there, you allow, I would say, the location, the kind of magic cocktail of like the location, the actors, maybe some nuances with lighting if you don't have full lighting control. Those little things are going to add to your mix.
The pressure of the schedule.
Yeah, schedule.
Right.
And that's what makes the movie. But
yeah.
if you have the true north that's kind of in your mind, then it feels very safe. I think to me it does. Where you can go in with a plan and then have the confidence to throw it away because you understand it internally what the core message is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's so easy. I wanted to go to my storyboard sometimes, but then I just felt like that's an indecisive moment.
Sure.
Because then if I go back to those, it just feels like, oh, I'm questioning, and then you're gonna get stuck in this little rut. It's like, no, it's all here. It's all working. Everybody's here to kind of get this thing going. The actors are ready. They're giving you stuff. So sometimes it's just like, that's why people make fun of shooting the rehearsals.
Right.
Are you really shooting the movie if you're shooting the rehearsals? Like, yeah, just shoot it. See what happens. Like, I'm fine with burning digital media sometimes, and because sometimes what it'll do is it'll wake something up. It'll wake something up in the scene. It'll wake something up in the moment, and an actor might do something that you weren't thinking of, and like you said, you get to play, you get to find out.
That's good.
So
yeah, if you're able to have that pivot time to problem solve and have that budgeted ahead of time to basically kind of like just take the place of a time block and to have like 15 5-minute 2-minute discussion of kind of like, yeah, but this is handheld, right? Like we could do, it's the same thing. It's the same language that we're trying to go for. And, or no, that's just sticks. It can take up that time block pretty quickly. And that feels liberating. And like you're actually making a movie.
Well, that's what I really enjoyed about Andrew and the crew too, is that most times we're like half an hour ahead, like lighting's pretty much set. We have time. We have time to experiment. We have time to play with the actors and just get into it. Thanks to small cameras, less gear, less stuff, you can really kind of like work it. Now, if we had the luxury of a 40 to 60 day, time block and budget to shoot the same movie, yeah, things might be different, but
and more crew.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But honestly, like I said, when we were driving home, I was just like, I feel like this was great for our first movie.
Yeah,
man, it's perfect.
That's awesome.
Like it was just good, just the right amount of sauce.
Gives you a lot of confidence for the next one.
Absolutely. Prepping commercials, I will say, is definitely different. Prepping commercials, you have more of an audience ahead of time, like more things to prove. Because we had $300,000 for 20 days of a movie, whereas we have $300,000 for 2 days of a commercial, and so they really want to see what's going on screen. So most of the time, pretty much every project I'll do is not only do storyboards and shot lists, but make a animatic or a rip-o-matic. So either we film it with the iPhone or steal commercials or music videos or pieces to make a little tone poem piece, but a lot of times we're making the commercial ahead of time. Seems to be something that people are doing more and more of, which I applaud because that's smart. It's like, just shoot it with your iPhone. Even if you scratch some of the shots or you don't, or you veer away from it, it's the same thing as the storyboards. It just gives you this confidence, but also it allows the ad agency creatives a window into your thinking, because you can write a treatment that's beautiful and flowery and says all the right things. But when you're on set, that's a whole different thing because you're dealing with all sorts of other things. But if you can, like, I always like to call it like we're making a spaceship on Earth, We have to break it here before we send it to space. So breaking it means film it, like see what's wrong with the edit, see if these things really work, if the voiceover really times out. And so it just gets everyone on the same page when you can see a rip-o-matic or an animatic and watch it like really play out on the screen. And you can like, okay, now we have a bit of a paint by numbers. And so now we can get ahead of things and we can have more room to improv and try something else.
We've really enjoyed messing around with LiDAR and doing point cloud scans of rooms and suddenly kind of like doing a screenshot on your iPhone and then plugging it into DaVinci Resolve and do the camera handheld type thing. And it's like, cool, well, you got that there and you see the window there and then you have a lighting diagram of what it's going to look like. And it builds a lot of confidence within the agency in order to be like, oh, shit, okay. Like we can just do that. Okay, cool.
Then you can let go of some of those things. Then some of those things can be like, oh yeah, we know that. And then we can focus on what agencies mostly like to focus on, especially when there's talent, is like getting various takes and getting into the nuances of the way the talent says it, or how they direct how they emote, or how they project the line. And so giving more of those kinds of options, and then surprises. Like they love surprises. They love having something where I don't call it happy accidents. I call it more of like a just a fun surprise. Like, hey, we have the time to try something else and amp it up a little. We just did a commercial recently for a hospital where it was very simple what we were trying to do, I thought. And then I was like, because they were just showing people like feeling the ailments of their sickness in this sort of portrait sort of style. But I was like, why don't we just film them? Now they're happy and smiling and they're just tossing the tissue box. It's not in the boards. It wasn't in the treatment, but we have time. Let's just shoot it. We put it in the cut. It makes sense. Now it brings the whole edit to be full circle and feels like there's a kind of a happy ending. And we put it in the first cut. The client loved it. And, but it was nothing that we planned. It was just, we made time for it on set to try something.
It's an instinct.
Yeah.
You have to kind of like put yourself into the shoes of the character and no matter how what the directive is, or if it seems not unplanned, just like, yeah, but I want this. and like, cool, we have time, let's do it. And just adapt, move forward.
Yeah, and I think especially now in commercials, the idea is to give more value. Like when I first started a long time ago, it was broadcast. Like if you're hot stuff, if you're doing national commercials, now national commercials, like that's great and all, but most people want to see like, it's streaming and social media type. Those are the platforms. And so now I'm finding like when we're filming things, we're not only shooting for the 60 or the 30, we're getting 15s and 10s and 6s. And so it's behooves us to try to get even more materials for them to shoot. Even if it's planned, it's like nice to get extra stuff. So a lot of the agencies are looking for that, looking for extra value. And some of that just comes from instincts, because I'm sure they could use those little pieces that we shot, we didn't plan, as its own little 6-second piece in a social carousel,
Yeah, recycle and call it good.
A movie and not worry about where it's going to go or how it's going to get distributed or what platforms it's on. Let's just make something that we can all enjoy and have fun, and maybe that'll make something, maybe it'll be better for that. I think that's happening so far. But we do hope to get into some festivals. I know Brandon and I would really love to get it sold so that we can do another one. Not in a sort of like house flipping sort of way, but more so, but kind of, we want to do more movies. Hopefully this is something that's a calling card to say we can do something that looks high end and has a lot of meat on the bone for a low amount of money. And hopefully that's appetizing to investors to give us a chance on something a little more with, some. I would do it with the same crew and the same actors again too, but it'd be nice to have more resources and other things too, so more time to prep. So that's the goal: get it done middle of the year, get it out to possibly streaming services. But it's like birthing a baby; it'll just be forever. It'll be out here forever, and hopefully people will enjoy it. And in America and overseas, we'll see. But hopefully we can actually play it for general audiences, local, like when we can have some like local events with our friend Jeff Stortz with Below the Line, and do some sort of private screenings with some friends and family. That's obviously going to happen earlier on too. So
Let me do a quick plug for you guys and what we talk about
Okay.
while we have it recorded.
Cool.
Yeah, unless you guys have anything else to share. You guys got anything else?
Good.
check out Brooker.
Damn straight.